Welcome to Life After 40 Conversations with Philip Blackett. This is a space for honest, thoughtful conversations about midlife without the hype, without diagnosis, and without pressure. If you're somewhere between 35 to 55 years old and quietly navigating questions about your energy, your identity, your work, your faith, your relationships, or your health, you're not alone. Midlife can often look stable on the outside and feel unsettled underneath. Life After 40 Conversations exists to do one thing well: to give adults in midlife the language, the clarity, and the calm perspective for a season that can often feel confusing, lonely, or silently overwhelming. This show exists to help you feel seen, steady, and less alone as you navigate the second half of your life. Now, bear in mind, this is not a self help program. It's not a medical show, and it's not even a motivational pep rally. What this is a meaning making space. Each episode is a grounded conversation between myself and with leaders, caregivers, entrepreneurs, pastors, parents, professionals, and thoughtful human beings who are living through midlife in real time, just like you and me. We reflect on lived experiences without issuing prescriptions with peer pressure. Because I believe in this deeply, midlife is worth living and worth living well. And living it well doesn't start with pressure, it starts with perspective. So if you ever thought to yourself, why does this season feel different for me? Or why am I rethinking things that used to feel settled before? You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And I'm grateful that you're here. So let's begin today's conversation. My guest here today is Janice Goldmintz. She is a workplace aging and caregiving strategist, corporate speaker, and gerontology expert who helps organizations recognize and respond to one of today's fastest growing workforce pressures: employees caring for aging parents. With a master's degree in gerontology and decades of professional and lived experience, Janice brings both strategic insight and practical guidance to conversations that many leaders are frankly unprepared for, but increasingly cannot ignore. As longevity reshapes the workforce, mid career professionals are quietly balancing demanding careers with complex family responsibilities. The result often shows up in productivity shifts, unexpected leave, leadership strain, and retention risk. And Janice helps organizations get ahead of these challenges through executive briefings, leadership talks, and workplace education that strengthen culture while supporting employee well being. So I'm happy to welcome Janice here with her calm authority, real world perspective, and her ability, you'll see, to translate an often emotional topic into clear, actionable insight for leaders, their teams, and their families. Janice, welcome to Life After 40 Conversations.
Thanks so much, Philip. I'm really looking forward to being here.
Absolutely. So just to get started, you know, just share your introduction to everyone not too long ago. And I love to get in your own words here. Before the titles, before the resume, who is Janice in this season of life?
So, where this comes together for me is both of my parents at different times had Alzheimer's disease. And my background in gerontology came from working with an amazing physician who really took fantastic care of his patients. And I got to learn a lot how to be with older people and the value that they bring. And when it came to my own parents, I thought, wow, I should know everything to do. And the truth was, I didn't. I tried lots of things that worked and I tried things that didn't work. And I really want to be able to share my experience, the good, the bad, the frustrating, the amazing, because I think it's not something that we talk about. I called my company Talk About Aging because we don't. And it's really, I guess, something that's very near and dear to my heart that I want to see us do more.
And so I completely agree with you on that one. Like, I even think back to when we talked earlier before this show, and what really resonated to me about you was just your purpose, flat out, like you just said. Like, let's talk about aging. Like, we don't talk enough about it. Everyone goes through it if you live long enough. And unfortunately, so many people are experiencing common aging things for the first time in real time, trying to figure it out on their own, as opposed if we provided a forum or a place for people
Right.
to learn more about what that's like. It's like, quite honestly, Janice, like you are part of the inspiration behind Life After 40 conversations as a whole, because having those conversations for people after 40 should be helpful, not just between you and me, but for people that are listening, people that are watching, for them to understand, hey, my parents never told me about this. I never learned about this. I didn't know that's coming down the pipeline for me or for my loved ones. And so hopefully we can help try to fill that gap for people so that they're more prepared for what life has to offer for them later on.
Hopefully. The truth is that our parents were not trained how to take care of their parents. And that's just the way it is. There's no training school for how do you take care of your parents as they get older. It's just, for the most part, it's fly by the seat of your pants because you don't have any other reference. You don't know. And when our kids age and we think about how we took care of our parents, it's not something that we transfer to them to say, oh, well, when I get old, this is what, generally what I want to have happen. And that's where I think I want to stop that uh, lack of sharing, because it's a normal part of being in a family. Having those conversations, having that as part of the dinner talk at times. Hey, if something happened to me, this is what I would want or what I wouldn't want. And not to be afraid that these subjects are going to be, I don't know, seen as unusual or taboo or negative. It's just a part of natural cycles of life. And the more we could talk about it and bring it out into the open, it will help the next generation and the next and the next.
I agree. I think that's just the right way to go. And I'm glad you're doing such a great part and really promoting that and sharing with people the importance of that. And so, you know, using this as an example, right? When we talk about midlife, for you in particular, when you experienced it, was there something that happened when you experienced midlife? And I usually classify it between 35 to 55 years, give or take a few years. Was there something that happened when you realized something that shifted within you?
I think when my kids started getting older, I had kids when I was relatively young. So my kids were older when I was still quite young. And I thought to myself, wow, my role as a mother is changing. I don't need to be mothering to the same degree. They're more independent, they have their own lives, and they're moving on. And so now that gives me more time and freedom to pursue my life and the things that I wanted. And that's when I ended up going back to school because I had that space and freedom to do more of what called to me.
Was there anything that you realized when your kids moved on that you were so used to when you were actively mothering, for lack of a better word, that you had to kind of shift and realize, well, what I was expecting when I was in that stage, that's no longer the case here anymore. Like, what was there something that you were working with or depending on that suddenly was no longer the case that you had to adjust to?
Well, I think it's going to sound really weird is that my expertise wasn't needed anymore. Um, I didn't have all the answers. They had their own answers. So I wasn't a reference library for my kids to the same degree. And I also had to step back when they were making their own decisions about things, some of which I agreed, some of which I didn't, to be able to say, okay, now my relationship has to be more adult adult, not child adult. And that they're going to make decisions and they're going to do things their way. And I'm going to have to allow that to happen, and whatever the consequences of those things are, that's going to be on them. I'm always there to support them. But I think it is a mind shift of being less hands on, less I need to oversee everything, and just say, okay, they're mature enough, they're adults, they're going to do what they're going to do. And now I have to pull back on the reins a little bit. It's hard. It's hard. Like when your kids grow up and you see that happening, you think, well, what is my purpose as a parent if
Mm,
they're adults? But I will tell you, you always have a purpose as a parent. My parents, when they're in their 80s and 90s, still were my parents, although the relationship was different. But I think it's a shift. And when you get to that 35, 40, 45-year-old stage, it's like, wow, what what does it mean to be a parent now?
mhm. Would you say that that shift was what surprised you most about this new season for you?
I think what surprised me most is that, like I said, like that my kids didn't need me the same way, and that was what is supposed to happen. It's like when your kids are little and you let them go to school the first time by themselves and you're nervous and you think, oh, can they walk to school? Is it going to be okay? Are they going to be all right? It's the same feeling like, oh, they're going out into adulthood. They're finishing, university. They're taking jobs. They're going into long-term relationships. And you just think, all right, like I'm closing my eyes and crossing my fingers that this is going to be okay. It's the same feeling.
Mhm. No, so that makes me think back to, so I have twin daughters, and so they'll turn 9 later on this month, and to your point, I think about when my wife and I first dropped them off at school, and needless to say, both of us were just train wrecks at that point, just thinking in terms of, like, you kinda enter a new stage where you're so used to them depending on you for every little thing, and now you're entrusting somebody else to help with that on a day-to-day basis, and you just kinda realizing it's just like, it just gets different each stage now,
Right.
where it's like you're so used to, like, when they first came in, like, they can't do anything without you, and then slowly but surely, it just starts to get a bit less, they become a little more independent, which is what you want, because after a while, you get tired of changing diapers and feeding after a while around the
That's right.
clock. But then to your point, it's just like, at some point, you start to be like, "Oh, goodness, I can kinda see the end of this one, and this is a whole new stage here."
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, was there anything in particular, Janice, when you were in midlife that forced you to stop ignoring one thing in particular? Maybe it's related to your kids as a parent, or maybe something different. And what changed once you paid more attention to it?
Well, I think I had gone to university and taken a business course and hadn't really used a lot of what I learned. And, you're busy in your life and things happen. And then at that stage, when my kids were both more independent, it was like, okay, now it's time for me to figure out what do I want to do with the next 40 years of my life. And that's when I decided to go back to school. I had been inspired by this, as I said, this physician that I worked with. And I thought, there's something I can do. And so in my middle years, I went back and got a master's degree. And I would say that the majority of people that were in my class were midlife. They weren't young, they weren't in their 20s. They were in their 30s, 40s, 50s going back to school. And I think it's, having lived all these years that we recreate ourselves over and over and over. And to take advantage, I know people that go back to school in their 70s and continue learning. And I think that's what keeps you not just alive, but living. It's like that's where your enjoyment comes, that constant learning, that constant change and growing. Um, and for me, it certainly did that. I was a good student before, but going back to school, I was much more focused on what I was doing because I wasn't worried about more trivial things, I guess.
So I'm really interested in that too, particularly Janice, because um, I'm sure there are people listening and watching us that may be in a similar light of thinking to themselves, like, hey, either my kids have already transitioned out of the home and I'm an empty nester and I'm thinking about what to do now with this extra time and for some extra money. Um, and then also from the standpoint of if they want to pursue something different, maybe learn a new trade, learn something new, go back to school. I could also think to myself that might be pretty scary for some people where it's like, I hadn't been in school in like 20, 30 years. Like, how do I deal with being in a classroom again, having classmates and the teacher or figuring out this whole technology thing? Cause I was used to like writing everything down, pen and paper. Now I got computers and AI and all this other stuff. Like, how was that transition like for you when you decided to go back to school?
It took getting used to, but I did it virtually, so that made it easier. I wasn't on a campus with young people. It was in front of my computer, so I had to learn it. Um, I think it's probably easier to do it that way because then you have lectures and things, but you have a lot more freedom to do things when it fits into your schedule. And the other thing that this kind of brought to me is, and I see a lot of younger people doing this too, is if there's something you love to do, say you love to bake, you can still do that as a sideline or whatever you want to call it, and have your family as part of your family and make it fit in. You don't have to wait till your kids are gone. You can
Mm,
start on these things that you're passionate about. There's so many people now that have created massive businesses from side hustles. Oh, I used to make cookies for the, PTA and everybody loved them. They said you should make them and sell them. And then I said, all right, I'll sell a few and I'll sell a few. And then somebody else says, oh, they're fantastic. I would love you to put them in my bakery. And then you do that. So you never know where even doing things that you love while you're in the younger ages, when you're older or, in that midlife may end up being the thing that you just fall in love with and you do that even more so. So I think there's no cookie cutter way to say, you're going to have your life and you're going to work and then your kids are going to go and then you'll figure it out. You have all of that time to figure it out while you're in it and do what you love. I mean, no matter what age you are, I just want to say, do what you love doing because then it never feels like it's work and it never feels hard. And it also brings joy to your life. And at every age, that's important.
I love it. Especially just the thought, which once again, I'm just kind of thinking to myself, you may have someone that may be listening and saying to themselves, like, okay, this is great. I'll do this once my kid graduates from high school
Right.
or once, we get through college and or maybe even grad school because my kid still, he still needs me. And when I think about it, I love what you're saying because it can be something that isn't taking over your whole schedule,
Right.
but it could be just something small that's connected with something you really love to do that might just be a nice hobby for you to have that just gives you a break from work and everything else in your life is just like that's just your thing that you just enjoy doing and just seeing how that pans out because the risk always with delaying is that who's to say that we'll have that time later on.
Right. Yeah. And you might as well do what you love, no matter what age. And as you get older, then, oh, well, then now I have this responsibility or that responsibility. Now I'm a grandparent. It's fantastic. I still see my grandchildren, and I baked with my daughter. My daughter bakes with her daughter, and I love seeing that sort of um, skill transfer happening. And kids watch, and this is the biggest thing that people don't realize, is your kids are watching what you're doing and they're learning from what you do. If you're enjoying your life, they're going to go, well, that's what I want to be doing. I want to enjoy my life. I want to have those pockets of time where I'm doing what I love, and whether it's swimming or it's sports or it's baking or it's fishing or whatever that is, and your kids become part of it. And as you grow older, they grow older with you, and then they transfer it to some what they love with their children. And your kids watch. And I think I had said this to you when we talked earlier, is that in terms of caring for your parents and how you want your kids to care for you, they're watching you. If you care for your parents, then they understand that's an important part of me in that intergenerational cycle. Oh, we take care of our parents. All right, that's part of what I will do with mine.
That makes perfect sense. I do remember that too. It's just how do you help build that generational pass down? What do you call
Right.
it? Cycle or just
Yep.
expectations or just, hey, this is part of our family culture. It's like this is what we do,
That's
you
right.
know? Um, just curious, I really appreciate you having this type of approach where it's like, hey, don't wait until you reach a certain milestone to start exploring certain things that you love to do or find what's the next step, knowing that at some point, the kids are going to be out the way. But then also to your point too, you may also have aging parents to care for.
Right.
They talk about this whole concept of the sandwich generation. It's not something like a sandwich generation is like a certain generation, like Generation X or millennials. It's just like, no, it's you just happen to be in a point in time where you're not only caring for kids that are growing up, but you're also caring for parents that are aging,
Right.
which can be a really intense or stressful time whether you have help from siblings or other sources of support, or if it's just all on you, like how would you how would you approach a situation like that if somebody was going through something like that? They were part of that sandwich generation to still feel like, hey, this is something I can see myself doing, even though it's challenging.
It's my whole thing is pre-planning. It's not reacting, it's being proactive. That's why, you're together for holidays and you're sitting around the table with your siblings. Perfect opportunity to start these conversations. Hey, mom, dad, do you have a will? Do you have powers of attorney? What would you want? As part of normal conversation. Oh, who's your lawyer? Who's your accountant? Where's this information? Where's your deed to your house? All these things. And not because you're being nosy, but because
Mhm.
you want to be prepared, because nobody knows at what time anybody's going to have health issues or whatever. And it's just part of normal conversation. And if you hold it that way, then it's not this overwhelming, oh my God, my parents are, you know, something is happening, because you've talked to them when they are 60, 65, 70, and they understand, hey, today it's 60, this is what I want. 65, it may be different. 75, it may be different again. But that the conversation is easy to have. Amongst your siblings, hey, I'm happy to take care of the financial part. I'm happy to take care of taking mom and dad to the doctor. I don't want to do anything. Okay. So you know where everybody stands and you can plan, and everybody gets a say. So it's not the kids telling the parents, this is what we're going to do. It's the parents saying, this is what I want. Let's sit down as a family and make it happen. And there could be a time where the parents don't have the cognitive ability to do it. but you already know what they want and you already know what their goals and their plans are, and you can plan better. It's and that will allow you to have that balance so that your life is not then overtaken by what happens if my parents this or what happens if that, or they're sidelined because the parent has a fall and there's no preparation. It's all balance. You want to take care of your kids, you want to take care of you, and you want to take care of your parents. And I always use that airline example. If you don't take care of you, that's no good. You're on the plane and that oxygen falls down and you've got your parent or your kid on either side. You got to put your oxygen on first. Because if you're not alive and able to help, you can't help anybody because you'll be the one that's going to, you know, not be able to handle anything and everybody else around you will. So it is about a balance. And it's a challenge because, again, we're not socialized to think about ourselves. And because we think, oh, if I talk about myself, that is self centered.
Mhm.
Somebody gave me a really great reframing is it's not self centered, it's centered in self. You have to take care of yourself in order to take care of everything else around you.
Mhm.
So it's balance and it's not easy and every family is different and but the idea is to do your best. And as I said, with my own parents, I made lots of mistakes and I did lots of good things. And I'm always happy to share the things that I did well and the things I didn't do so well, so that somebody else doesn't make the same mistakes that I made.
Mhm. No, that's great. It's what's also helpful with what you just shared, Janice, was that even when we talk about the sandwich generation as far as caring for growing kids and also caring for aging parents, there's a connection still in the middle,
Yes.
and
You.
that's you. If you can't care for yourself, how do you expect to care well for your kids, let alone care for your parents? So everyone's connected in this.
Yes.
Everyone's connected in this. That makes a lot of sense. And centering on self, I like that too. It's not self-centered. It's just understanding, like you said before, like, so many people, like I even think about my own family when my grandparents were in a place so they had to be cared for by others. And I watched like my mother and my aunt and my uncle trying to figure out how do we do this? How do we go about shifts and schedule? How do we
Right.
take care of the finances of it? Where do we take them as far as, seeing the doctor in the facility? And, do we put them in a home and that sort? And to your point as well, I was much younger back then and I was very observant on how they went about doing it. And thinking to myself too, it's like, okay, well, when it becomes my turn to care for, how do I want to do this?
Right.
Because I can understand seeing the stress of this. Some people may say, "Hey, I'm
Can't do
sorry,
it. Yeah.
I,
Can't do
I,
it.
I, I can't handle this," and it's a really tough thing to admit and be honest about. But you also understand too when you kind of see it in real life what people go through and how people can get exhausted on a daily basis and burnt out, because they're not able to care for themselves in the midst of doing this. Um, that could be really serious.
The other thing too you have to look at is that most people now that are in that 40 to 55 age bracket are working. They're in a career, they're not at home. So now you've got your children, your parents, you and your career. And you're likely in your career, you're just at that point where things are going well for the most
Yeah.
part, or you're advancing, and all of a sudden, bang, now you've got parents that something is going on. How do you balance? And so, what a lot of people do is an opportunity will come for advancement. Like, oh, well, I don't know if I could do that. It's got all these things. Can I do that? And then that factors into it, especially with women because they feel that responsibility more so, I would say. So they may hold themselves back in their career. Well, my parents, my kids, all these things. I don't know if I could do this. And again, it's something that we're not taught to be able to manage. And companies are just now starting to see that stress from outside, wherever it comes from, when you walk through the door, you don't leave your home life at home 100%. It's coming in with you. You're on the phone talking to your siblings or your parents or the doctor or whomever. And it's no different than when you have little kids and they're in daycare and you're worried that you've sent your child to daycare with a cold. Are they going to be okay? Is this all right? And you're hoping that the daycare is not going to call you to come and bring your child home. It's just the other side of it. But it affects your work life no matter
Mm.
what. And some workplaces are very flexible and have an understanding, and others, for the most part, don't. And so people are afraid to share with their workplace. I've got stress at home. I've got things going on. So they'll say, instead of I have to take my parents to the doctor, they'll say I have to go, because that's more acceptable. Oh, you have to the doctor, that's normal. But oh, your parents, well, now you're going to start getting busy with your parents, and how's that going to affect your work? So that's, for me, is the whole crux of what I want to be sharing with people, is having companies understand that this is very real when they come in the door. How can you help your staff deal with it better, so that when they're in their job, they're in their job. They know their parents or whomever are being taken care of in the best way, and that they have flexibility if there are times where they have to not be at work, that's accommodated for them.
That's a great point. And one of the things I thought about with what you just shared, Janice, is that, at the end of the day, companies are not faceless entities, right? They're
Yeah, they're
they're
all
run
people.
they're run by people, right? It's like your manager, the head of this department, the CEO, the board, they're all people,
Right.
which the thought is you would think that they would absolutely be more understanding because they're humans too and they go through these type of topics, these type of issues. They may have aging parents, they may have growing kids they're rearing up, they may have issues with self-care as well. You would think, of course, like, you understand, but to your point, I agree with you. you know when you have something that high stakes as far as like your livelihood, working somewhere, you want to make sure that's protected because that very much can be not
Yeah.
only your source of covering for your kids at home, but also for your parents that may need it. So it's
Right.
almost like, I don't want anyone to take that risk. I don't even want to disclose. I don't want to be transparent. And then you have people saying, well, Philip, I never knew. It's like, well, if I said something, how would you respond? I have no guarantee
Right.
that you would respond a certain way that would make me feel safe to say that. So, I'm curious from your perspective here, Janice, what could businesses and companies and organizations do? Like, what are a few things they could do to help provide more of a safe space for people to just be honest and say, hey, this is what's going on. And I like to keep working here. I want to be at my best. I just need some sort of support or understanding with what's happening that's impacting me while at work.
I think a lot of it is what's called corporate culture. If the company focuses on staff well-being, you know it through other things. You know it through the way that they allow time off for other things. You know it through, maybe they have programs, they bring people in to talk about wellness, or they have an employee assistance program that has, counseling, or they have employee benefits for chiropractors, or all of those kinds of things that people may need. You can see in a lot of companies that they are employee focused. You know that you can go and knock on the door to human resources and feel comfortable and not think, oh, this person is now going to go run to my boss and say, hey, John Smith here, he's got problems. You better watch out. You also know that when you come in stressed, people acknowledge, hey, You look a little off today. Now, you also have to realize that companies are in business to make money for the most part, and they need to make sure that their productivity and their output is at the level that it needs to be. So for a company, it has to be a balance. You have to still do what you need to do to be productive, but also have flexibility. Maybe you need to work from home. You're still doing work, but maybe now you're at home for a day, a week, or whatever that might be. So it's compromise. It's a give and take. More companies are aware of this issue. That's part of what I'm trying to do too, is to bring it out saying, hey, you've got people sitting at their desks there, and for you, you're just seeing absenteeism, or they're off on stress leave, and you're not really sure why this is happening more than it might have. But look at the age of these people that this is happening to, and think about what's going on outside the door here. So it's recognition. And I think with the baby boom now, the baby boomers are in their 70s. You're going to see more and more of their children affected in the next 10, 20, 30 years with these people getting older, and now these professionals having to fit that into their life, where before it was much more a younger demographic in the workplace. That's
Mhm.
going to be changing.
Wow. Yeah, I understand that.
So
So, I think that's really
a lot of
helpful
time.
for us. And no, it's no problem at all. Um, so I think what really comes off from here is just these are just different life stages we're all
Yeah.
experiencing. And it's helpful to get ahead of it to at least understand what's coming and how it impacts whether at home or at work. Because I think what you said before, planning is key.
Yes.
And, you know, seeing where you kind of come from up to this point to now, I love to learn, Janice, just from your experience now and what you've been through thus far, what are some of like the beliefs or habits or rhythms of yours that are now non-negotiable for you at this stage of life?
I would say it's being really clear what I want, you know, and telling people, and not that people have to agree or not agree. I sit down with my kids on a regular basis and say, okay, here's where I'm at with this, and here's where I'm at with that, and listening to them as well, because their life is changing, their kids are growing, and their professional life is changing. I think it's about not having to have the last say all the time,
Mhm.
and being assertive when what you want is important to you. I think that there's a balance. Again, everything is balance and compromise. You want what you want in your life and in the way that you want it, and it doesn't always happen, and you have to be flexible, but you also have to be able to stand up for yourself and say, this is what I want. Another sort of aspect of this in the aging world is when there are medical issues, is to get what you need from your health provider. One of the things that I really learned from this doctor that I worked with is people would come in and say to him, well, what do you expect at my age? Dot, dot, dot. This is, I'm this age. This is what's going to happen. And he would say, that's not right. That's not true. What do you expect at your age? Is you expect to have the same kind of health care when you're 80 as when you were 40. There's no difference. Your life has value. You may not be able to do everything, and there may be more health challenges, but it doesn't mean they shouldn't be taken care of. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be listened to in terms of what you would want or not want.
Mhm.
Your input is still your input. I remember going with my mom to the doctor once, and the doctor was talking to me about my mom. And my mom said, excuse me, I'm the patient. Like, I'm the patient. How come you're talking to her? You're not talking to me. And I said, yeah, talk to my mother. But again, in medical school, that's not That's not the way they're taught. They are taught, this is a clinical thing. Oh, you're, this age, it's different. I'm just going to say that. And again, I'm hoping that over time that changes. That one of my friend's sons just became a doctor, and that's not the way that he was taught. He was taught much more patient centric. So things are shifting. Things are shifting, and the baby boomers are going to demand that they shift. They're not
Mhm.
going to sit back like their parents did and go, okay, whatever you say, doctor in the white coat. It's not going to happen. They're going to ask more questions, and the doctors will say, oh, are you Dr. Google? Because I hear that
Yeah.
already. Yeah, I went and I looked and I found out this and I found out that. And, and I looked at a study and I did this. So, yeah, I'm more informed. Yeah, I am more informed. So now you're going to have to deal with people who have more of a stake in their own well being. And that's going to be, again, a culture shift.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's just people have a lot more at their fingertips in terms of information that they can find out for.
Yeah,
And, more people are coming to their healthcare provider much more educated, much more informed, where it's just like, they're going to put you to the test and say, hey, listen, doc, I heard something different. Like, help
that,
me understand what's the
that's right.
difference between X procedure and Y procedure. And they're like, well, they weren't asking questions like that 10 years ago.
That's right. That's right.
And so, but at the same time, I think to your point, even if that's the case, the concern should be more so still about how are you still caring for your patient and your patient's relative, whether it's spouse or daughter or son, in the process of, hey, listen, this might be new to you. It's not new to me. I've been doing this for a while. Let's walk through this together. Bring your questions,
Right.
bring your thoughts, like whatever's on your mind. Like we'll follow through this together. Right. And so I really think that that's sound and would love to get your perspective here as we start to conclude our conversation here, Janice. If there is someone that's listening or watching to this show right now and may be in a similar situation, maybe they are caught in the middle between caring for kids, but they also know either they're currently caring for aging parents or they're pretty much knocking on the door right around the corner of doing so while having these expectations at work, right in that 40 to 55-year range we talked about, and they're struggling silently or even burning out. What do you want them to hear from you right now?
Don't hide it. If you're burning out, if you are struggling, find help, whether it is someone in your family, whether it is a professional person, whether it is your own health professional that can guide you, whoever it is, somebody, human resources in your workplace, your friends, somebody. But keeping these kinds of challenges internal isn't going to change them, and you're not going to be able to move forward. There's, geriatric case managers. If you find that you can't do these things on your own, there's professionals out there that will guide you, that will help you, that will help you to sit down with your family and say, okay, okay, you didn't make a plan before. That's all right. Let's make a plan now. Let's figure out what can we do. Financial advisors, if money is an issue, how can I take what we have and maximize it? What are the government options that I have to draw on? The more information, the more informed you are, the easier these things are going to be. And sometimes it's saying, I need a break. I need somebody
Mhm.
else to step in. I need to get away. And that's okay. As we both said, there are people who are just going to say, I can't do this. And that's valid. There's no judgment, there's no nothing. If you say it's not for me, as long as you can put a plan in place that somebody else is doing it and making sure they're cared for, it doesn't have to be you. I've had people tell me, well, it's my obligation. Don't do it from obligation. Do it because it's what calls to you. if you do it from obligation, it's never going to be um, the same as doing it from love and caring and whatever. And if you feel obligated, then just find somebody else, bring somebody in, whoever it is. It can be faith, your faith based community. It can be friends, other family. It doesn't have to be you necessarily, as long as they're cared for and they have the highest quality of life that you can provide. And not everyone's going to have the same. It's just, there are financial issues. There are distance. There's a lot of kids that don't live near their parents. And
Hmm.
so, how do you take care of your parents from a distance? Somebody else has to have their eyeballs. It's not you. So, there's
Right.
all of these different things. So, to really answer you, Philip, it's just look at options. There's no one way to do it. Do what's going to work for you and your family. And if you want guidance, I'm happy. You can reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to people. I have a thing on my website, my Calendly, 15-minute conversation, even if it's just for you to say, oh, I can't. My parents are driving me crazy.
Yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and go into that. For people that are asking for help, where's the best place that they can connect with you, Janice, and following this conversation, whether to follow you, your work, or like you said, even just to say, help,
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
help, help me through this.
So I'm on Instagram under Aging Parent Journey. I'm on Facebook, Talk About Aging. That's my company. I also have a website. There's ways to contact me off the website as well. And my website is geared to companies and professionals, but I'm always open to talk to individuals and help them out. At the holidays, I have a resource called the Family Visit Checklist. If you ever want to know, is there things happening that I should be concerned about? I'm always happy to send that. It gives you a bunch of things to look for when you're visiting older people to say, okay, are they doing okay? Oh, or here's some red flags that I should be looking at. It's just a very helpful checklist that you can just go, yeah, good, or oh, that's a concern. And if you see concerns, again, that can spark conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's excellent, and thank you for providing those resources. We'll make sure that everyone is able to find where they can connect with you from here.
No problem.
Janice, this was a wonderful, very informative conversation.
Thank you.
Um,
Happy to do it.
too absolutely too few people get to really understand what this is like, which is why it could be absolutely scary.
Yeah,
But I do appreciate the fact that you're very honest about it, very transparent, where it's approachable. And I think that's what we need more of, like being able to see aging as more approachable,
right,
where we can be honest, where we can talk about it in a safe space, learn more about it, and learn how we can better care for the ones we love as well as ourselves in the process.
for sure.
Right. So for everyone listening in and watching, let this be a reminder to you that, midlife comes with its challenges, of which one of them is how do you care for those that you love as well as yourself? But as Janice talked about before, you got to be able to put on your mask first and be able to care for yourself. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to care for those that are dependent on you, whether children or parents. And so, if there's something that resonated with you with what Janice said today, let's sit on it. Reflect on what she said. See how it applies to you and your situation. Maybe there's something more that you can pay more attention to as a result of Janice being that catalyst for you. Because that's where real change begins, not with urgency, but with awareness. So, as we conclude today's conversation, to learn more about Life After 40, you can head over to our website at lifeafter40.com. You're also welcome to connect with me at philipblackett.com. And just as a friendly reminder as we finish up, midlife is worth living and worth living well. Thank you so much, Janice, for being a part of our conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening in on this. Feel free to share it with someone who you think this episode could relate to that probably should be in touch with Janice over this topic here for sure. And this has been Life After 40 Conversations with Philip Blackett. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you in the next conversation.